Hi and welcome to another video. In this video I finally will challenge myself to make the Roubo Workbench. And as you can see, I have the slats, I have the lumber ready to go, ready to cut, ready to mark. I got the plans, everything in detail, everything you need to know is here. And if this works out, I might upload them for free. Now, of course, I don't have any experience, and that's why I base my knowledge on Christopher Schwartz's book. Now, the problem is I want a tabletop about 12.5 centimeters. Exactly 12.5 centimeters. And I don't know if the lumber I got for the tabletop, which is maple, is gonna be enough. So let's cut them in pieces and see if we have enough. And I got more outside the shop. Okay guys, I hope you will enjoy this video and enjoy the build. Come on, let's go build the Roubo Workbench.
Actually, cutting those lumbers with a track saw is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to do that. At least in a small workshop. Not only is it easy to handle on some really good built sawhorses, video for that linked, but also really easy to set up. I had to cut the lumber at least 14 centimeters wide so I could reach the thickness of the tabletop I wanted. Those boards are going to be glued vertically, so they will create a final thickness of 12.5 centimeters or about 5 inches. I decided to make the tabletop from maple and beech. Initially I thought I got hard maple, but I made a mistake while purchasing. I bought regular maple, and regular maple is not that hard like beech or hard maple, so I had to get at least the parts where my vices are going to be mounted covered with beech. The whole process of cutting the lumber took me 8 hours and left me really excited with a few gallons of dust. I had one board wide enough for all the leg pieces and rails, etc., and I was really surprised that I bought the exact amount of wood for the whole workbench.
I'm done. I'm done cutting. As you can see, everything is ready for planing and thicknessing. Man, it's 6 p.m. and I'm super tired now. Been cutting all day long.
The next step was to get the boards for the legs flat without a jointer. That actually went really well with this jig I made. Especially because you can adjust the gaps with screws instead of wasting so much pegs and hot glue. I find it really messy and just annoying. The video for that is also linked. I didn't pay any attention to the squareness of each of them now because I knew I would fix it later. At least I thought so. Then I glued up all the legs. Each of them were made of 2 beech boards, and I had to buy 10 more clamps because I only had 10 and I wanted to glue everything together in one day.
Get the clamps ready and glue.
Maybe I should have used 10 clamps each because beech is really hard and you need a lot of force to really close the gaps between each board, and especially if you use hardwood like beech. I had 12 boards about 2 meters long and all needed to be flattened. Some of them were really twisted and I lost about 1/3 of the thickness. This whole process took me 4 days and I almost got mad. After that nightmare, I finally began putting the boards in the right order, keeping the grains in mind, and started milling the boards for the lamellas. I started gluing every board together and I was in such a hurry because I only had 15 minutes of assembly time with Type Bond 1. I used way too much glue. It was such a mess and I truly learned my lesson. But it's okay, better too much glue than too little, right? I had a timer running and I'm planning to release a separate unedited video on how this was stressful to me, but also really funny to watch for those pros out there. After using almost every clamp I had in the shop, for this glue up, I probably burned 800 calories and called it the day. Luckily I had help with the second glue up and I did not waste that much glue.
Second glue up went a little bit quicker and I didn't use so much glue. See you tomorrow. Ah, by the way, another one is here. Looking good.
The best part was getting the tops through the thicknesser and seeing the boards getting more and more beautiful each cycle. I'm so glad I made these cabinets long enough so I didn't need to lift the 70 plus kilos of tabletops around the thicknesser. I just lifted the knives and easily pushed the slab back to the start. After planing everything and squaring up every leg, I began to miter everything to the right length. Then I sharpened my pencil and began to mark every shoulder of the tenons I needed in pairs. This allowed me to have the exact length of the shoulders of the tenons of each side of the standing frame. By the way, if you haven't noticed already, on the top right of the screen you can see which part type I am currently working at. I remember being really nervous before my first cut with the Japanese saw, because I didn't want to have any miscuts. In these cases it was only the tenons which are going to be hidden into the mortises, but it was a good start and practice. I really enjoyed making all these cuts by hand. I wanted to try the table saw though. After trying both, I must admit that although the table saw is faster, I really prefer the hand cutting because it's not that noisy and dusty, and you can learn something. Everyone can cut the straight cut with the table saw, but mastering the Japanese saw takes a lot of effort and time. I really enjoyed cutting everything with hand, and I thought to myself, why not using this build to become better at cutting with your hands? After all these cuts, I saw myself improving on keeping the cut straight and clean. And at first I cut beside the line and wanted to clean it afterwards with a chisel, but the more I cut, the more confident I became and just cut on the line. I noticed that although the saw was directly on the line on some legs while cutting, the blade made a bow and you couldn't really see that until the end. That was annoying, and this is going to be relevant when gluing the legs into the tabletop. I think it took me 4 weeks of work only to cut the rails and the legs, and this took me way longer than I expected. I genuinely thought I could finish the whole bench in only 5 days. The next part was really enjoyable as well. After 20 hours of cutting, I finally began chiseling out the mortises on the legs. I paid attention to make them loose fit so I wouldn't struggle that much when gluing everything together. Of course, I had to make a dry test fit and see if all that work was not wasted, and I was not disappointed. Seeing the frame come together made me so proud. It was just beautiful. I'll let you enjoy the assembly and will be saying goodbye now. Thanks for watching. See you in the next part. I'm excited to say that I've finally finished the workbench. Though it took me longer than expected, I originally thought I could wrap up the entire project in just 5 days, but boy was I delusional. Before you jump to any conclusions, let me explain. I had a vision for a really nice end vise that combined the best of two worlds. I wanted to center the vise between the two tops so I could hold long boards and use bench dogs for clamping longer boards across the entire width of the bench. It's going to be amazing, but there is one issue when clamping boards on one end of the vise. However, I would rather have the solvable problem and the versatility of the vise than have an insert vise with limited functionality. I knew that drilling long holes could be difficult, so I used the floor and a block of scrap wood to adjust the drill horizontally without having to focus too much. Turning this beast on its feet was definitely harder than it looks. I must admit it fell the first time, but for the sake of keeping this video short, I'll save that clip for the extended, uncut version of the build. Traditionally, the Rubo workbench has its legs pegged, but believe it or not, that was not on my to-do list. Initially, I wanted to fill the gaps with epoxy. I mixed the epoxy, but because it was so cold in my workshop, it didn't harden after a whole week. I remember how devastated I was and I had to come up with a solution for that issue. I cleaned up the epoxy and decided to make pegs. Fortunately, the epoxy glue I used was thick and did eventually harden, but it still took a few days to harden. I cut the pegs and legs flush with the tabletop and was extremely careful not to go beyond that and mess up. I tried to fill all the gaps, and that cup you see there serves a purpose. The epoxy was getting through the gaps and I wanted all gaps closed. So I just flipped the glue over that spot, and after a day I removed the cup. The vise was almost ready, but I didn't have a block of wood big enough to make the parts of the vise. It took me a while to get the best results out of the scrap wood pieces I had. I even had to extend the bench jaw so the vise could have something of equivalent size to clamp onto. Even that simple assembly took me a day or so because you keep encountering small steps in between that you haven't thought about, but you spend time thinking of a good solution to accomplish them. I'm learning by doing, so I usually do some research, but at the end of the day, some difficulties are unique and you just try your best to solve them. Sometimes you do stupid stuff and waste a couple of hours, but at least you're gaining experience. In the end, the vise turned out to be amazing, and the power it had to clamp wood was just incredible. I didn't even use any rubber to enhance the friction, and still there was no way a piece of wood would move. Hey there, and welcome to another video. Today I'm about to make the biggest mistake in the history of this channel, so make sure to stick around because I really need your ideas right now, guys. It all started with these profiles. They were really easy to assemble, and in just a few minutes the main parts were set. The tricky part was temporarily mounting them to the tabletop, screwing them to the sides. So I had no other option than to screw some parts of the profiles onto the underside of the table and then use clamps to adjust the parallel guide. I had an aluminium plated PVC board and used that to mount a router on. This was only a quick fix while my acrylic glass was on its way. I also mounted a handle to have something to grab onto. Before actually planing the tabletop, I had to plane the excessive epoxy I used to fill the gaps. So, for the first round, I set the router 3 mm below the surface to give it a test run. Then I set the router again and I thought I set it to 5mm this time. But as it turns out, it wasn't 5mm, it was 12 or something like that. I was just looking at that brick screw up for a few minutes, trying to comprehend what just happened. But at the end of the day, I had only one thing to do, and that was to surface the whole top and then think when my rage is over. Please give me your best ideas to cover up my upcoming mistake. Just comment your best tip and the best idea will be implemented and also highlighted.
So this happened after the second one. I'm super annoyed. Super annoyed. Shit. But you know what? That's beautiful. Actually, that's really cool. I like that. I like this one. And it's plain. God.
Although the router planing bit was excellent in leaving a pretty good finish, it wasn't perfect, so I cleaned the last tracks with the hand plane and gave it all a good sand.
You don't know how smooth it is. Man, beautiful.
Ignore that, yeah? But the rest is looking really beautiful. Really, really nice. Sanding on this part and then fill all the gaps. I'm super proud. Yeah, let's do some chamfer here. And go on. Still a lot of work. Yeah, still a lot of work. But it's at least a plain surface now. Beautiful.
I wasn't sure if I wanted a chamfer or a roundover, but in the end I went for the chamfer. Man, you have no idea what's like building the bench top and then drilling a bunch of 90mm holes through the whole thing. It can give you nightmares. I made a template to match all the rows in case I add more holes, so I'll always have the same distance between them all. Making a handle without a lathe is not that hard. All you need to do is plane the diagonal parts until you get an octagon, and from there you'll keep adding a chamfer on each corner until you have something round. Doesn't need to be perfect, and in my case I'm going to replace them sooner or later when I have the cash to buy a good lathe.
If you noticed, I've made a little groove here. To insert something I can move around left and right. Now, the problem is if you have a long board which fits perfectly in here, in order to get it out you have to move it the whole length of the board. So I would have to move the bench over to this side in order to get it slide all the way up, which is a little bit annoying. So that's why what I'm doing is I will make the insert to fit from the top, and if you want to raise it up a little bit, you turn it around, it will raise up a little bit and you have a plain stop. Now, let's get our piece of walnut and yeah, start working on it.
This piece of walnut has been waiting for its purpose for a few months now, and the reason for that long waiting was that I had no jointer. Now, you could argue that the planing sled I built is sufficient enough, and you would be right. I just made my mind up to only flatten this board with a jointer. The next step was to cut the boards to the correct thickness, and the bandsaw was my machine of choice. Then I had to sand it through the thicknesser to get rid of the rough blade marks. I prepared a piece of oak to have pockets across the insert, and had to get my smallest chisels for the exact thickness of the inner walls. I cut the board into pieces and glued them together like a piece of Kinder chocolate. Once everything dried, I needed to make sure it fits into the split top. So back to the past Daniel. Does it fit?
Not yet, and that's actually what I meant to do.
Yes, sure. Well, actually it was all planned and I had to plane it slowly by hand in order to have it perfectly fit without any play. The seconds turned into hours doing that fit, but finally it was all good. I cut the excess material and let it fly through the thicknesser again. By the way, if you are intrigued by this machine and would like to hear my thoughts on it, drop a comment, and I'll be putting together a dedicated review video for you.
Wow. Wow. I like that.
It took me some necessary measurements to have a cutout there where the vise is mounted. Then I went back to the bandsaw and finished my cut with the handsaw. The insert has two positions. For the flat position I had to make some measurements and some precision work with the Japanese saw and the chisel.
Now I need to measure the exact height of this. Exactly here. Well, let's see if I did everything right. Okay. Wow. Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Here a little bit.
I was halfway through the sanding and just wasn't happy with the results. So I grabbed my hand plane and flew across the whole surface like a caffeine-fueled superhero on a mission to vanquish unruliness, turning the bench top into a sleek landscape that would make even the fanciest runaway jealous. Then I finished the surface with melted butter and salt, only to see if you guys are paying any attention. Wait, what? Just a joke. Finally, the Rubo split top insert is finished and there is only one thing left for the bench to be officially finished. And that's the big hole I accidentally routed into the one side. Yeah, if you remember that. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed watching.
always a pleasure making a video for you guys. See ya!
Don't forget to subscribe and to like that video. And if you're feeling really good, maybe you can share it.